My wife Dolly and I were an ordinary middle-aged couple living in a small town in southern Indiana. Our children, Rhett and Scarlett, went to college, got married, and lived nearby, but there were no grandchildren yet. Even though we had both gained a few extra pounds over the years, we were still relatively attractive considering our age, in our mid-50s. We happily celebrated our 28th anniversary 2 months before this happened. I'll get to that soon, but first, I need to tell you a little about the celebrity fascination my wife has had for years. Soon after we got married in the 80s, a long-haired singer, about 7 years older than us, became popular singing sweet ballads written according to the same formula. He became financially very successful, but artistically disappointed. His name was Bradley Morgan, but thanks to a typo on his breakthrough album, he was known as Bradley Morgan. Dolly was completely delighted with the image of the stud from a romance novel that his public relations circle created. Of course, as a music lover, I had to buy his latest album as soon as it became available. On a whim, I bought one of his old albums and loved what he did with some blues and some other great songs. Dolly didn't like them at all, preferring pop romantic nonsense that played on her heartstrings like an angel on a harp. Knowing full well that she would never have the chance to meet her idol, let alone have a chance of romance with him, she joked that Bradley would be her next husband. I laughed with her. The first couple hundred times she said it, both publicly and privately. She never noticed that I stopped laughing long after the joke got boring and got on my nerves. She just kept confessing her yearning romantic desire for him. A few years later, when she made too many comments, "When I marry my next husband, Bradley Morgan," in front of our friends, I let her know that I no longer appreciated her telling everyone that old joke. "Dolly, it's time for you to leave this crap alone. I know you've told me 100 times that you're just kidding, but after repeatedly telling everyone you know that he's Mr. Right and I'm just Mr. Right now, it's starting to really annoy me. It is also an insult to me in front of your friends and family, which I am very tired of hearing. Saying it multiple times is a joke, but you've probably mentioned him and me this way thousands of times over the years, and it's time to stop. I understand that our lives do not consist of great wealth and fame, but we drive decent cars and live in a nice house. If you have a fantasy about living with him, please stop sharing it with everyone, especially me. It becomes humiliating." "Oh, you can't be serious, I'm just kidding. I know the closest I've come to meeting him, let alone marrying him, was at the concert you took me to last year. It's just my way. Telling everyone that our life is not good enough for you," I interrupted. "Look, I understand that everyone has their own real life and their own dreams of what life could be, but no one talks about it as often as you. Let me ask you a question. How often do your friends tell you that they just wish they could marry someone else by name?" "Almost never. It's the same with me and my friends. Besides, have you ever heard me talk about the other woman I fantasize about?" "Well, I can't remember anything like that." "That's because I don't have a fantasy woman. My fantasy woman is you, assuming you can stop talking about Bradley Morgan 15 times a day. Do you understand what I'm getting at here? You seem to be getting jealous of Bradley. You know you're my main man, right? I would never leave you for him even if I had the chance. I love you, Kurt, and there is no one else in my heart. I might be a little jealous, but if that were the case, I would have raised this issue years ago. Let me break it down for you this way. What if I mentioned that I really liked some woman and made comments about how she was better than you several times a day? Just to randomly pick an example, I paused for a moment so that she would think I was picking someone out of my head. I continued, let's say Betty Roth, and noticed that she has great breasts. I prepared for this conversation in advance. Betty was the easy-to-reach girl next door. At 37, she was 7 or 8 years older than us at the time, but she dressed like a 20-year-old. She had a great body and spent a lot of her ex-husband's alimony to keep her body in tip-top shape. With a flirtatious personality, she was a hot topic in many homes in our area. In case you haven't noticed, those great breasts you mentioned are store-bought. You have the nerve to compare me to that brat? I had to interrupt you for a month or two just to... You do my job for me. Do you understand what it's like to be compared to someone you can never compete with on the same level? I can never hope to have the money, fame, or image consultants that Bradley Morgan has, but I'm still compared unfavorably to him quite often. Do you understand what I'm getting at? Yes, I think so. Sorry, Kurt. I'll try to stop this. Thank you. That's all I ask. Of course, you can't completely break such an ingrained habit. But to her credit, she cut it down to a few times a week and then a couple times a month. When you become successful and famous enough, especially when you make women swoon, jealous husbands start making fun of you. It was the same with stand-up comedians and Bradley Morgan. When I was watching TV, I laughed out loud when they gave good old Bradley a good "Don't call me Brad Morgan" joke. This began to irritate Dolly, and I felt a little uneasy when she made it clear that she did not find these jokes funny at all. Okay, maybe I was a little jealous. Do you blame me? Well, references to her next husband finally started to fade, as did his career in the late 90s. Our family grew up, and the next thing we knew, we were in our 50s, empty nesters. I knew she still had a thing for Bradley because she bought his autobiography when it came out. Seeing that she had only read a total of 5 books over the years of our marriage, it was obvious that she still really liked him, but at least she wasn't waving him in my face anymore. One Wednesday evening, we were sitting in our ranch-style home that my father, my son, and I had built. At 70 years old, Dad was mostly in charge, but his many years of experience as a builder were invaluable. We would never have had a mansion, but we managed well on our own. The doorbell rang, and we both looked at each other with an unspoken question. Are we waiting for someone? I stood up, walked across the living room, turned on the porch light, and opened the door. I saw 3 men in nice suits and a professionally dressed woman in her 30s. I carefully blocked the entrance to our house with my body. Dolly Dillon lives here? The woman asked. Despite my instinctive desire to do the opposite, I replied, Yes, I'm her husband. What do you need from her? We prefer to discuss this with her. Is she at home now? At this time, Dolly came up behind me, so she redirected her question. Are you Dolly Dillon? Yes. Why do you ask? Well, Dolly, you are just lucky. You are the winner of the Dream Date with Bradley Morgan competition. She pushed past me, and the 3 suits followed, roughly pushing me aside. Are you joking? I've never won anything. This is so amazing. So when will this happen? What will happen next? We're going to take you out for a full makeover with the best makeup team in Hollywood. Then we'll go shopping on Rodeo Drive to buy you some new clothes because you're going to the movie premiere on the arm of Bradley Morgan himself. The 2 women screamed like 2 horny teenage girls and even jumped up and down a couple of times. I cannot believe this. This is so incredible. When will we start? Right now. You will come with us. We're leaving here tonight. Okay, just give me a few minutes to collect myself. Do not worry about it. We will have everything new for you. It's all part of the transformation. If you need any medicine, grab it and let's go. Dolly almost ran to the kitchen where she grabbed her blood pressure medicine and her cell phone. I noticed that one of the suits was filming the whole thing with his phone camera, probably for later use in advertising. While she was in the other room, I asked, So, where is she going, and where is she staying, and when is she coming back? I need to know these things. I was interrupted by Dolly coming back into the room and grabbing her jacket as she almost ran out of the house, forgetting our traditional goodbye kiss, muttering something about finally meeting her next husband. When she opened the door to go out, she exclaimed, Wow, a long limousine. The woman replied, We're taking her to Hollywood to get her makeup done and set up a date for the movie premiere on Friday night. Be sure to watch the entertainment program on the extraterrestrial channel tonight. You might see your wife. She should be home late on Saturday or Sunday, depending on what flight we can arrange. Don't worry, we'll take good care of her. I'm sure she'll call you to keep you posted when she has a free minute. Thank you for being such a good husband. See you. With that, they walked out the door as quickly as they had arrived. Good husband, damn it, I responded sarcastically, not addressing anyone. I stood there all alone in my living room, wondering what the hell just happened. kept turning it over in my head, trying to make sense of it. My best guess was that Bradley was trying to revive his sagging career by making some lucky fan the winner of a dream date competition. My wife obviously failed this without telling me, but why would she? I don't mention to her every competition I enter, but if I won, the prizes would also benefit her. I closed the front door and locked it. Then it dawned on me that she left without even saying goodbye. I went to my cell phone and called her, but after 3 rings, it went to voicemail. 3 beeps meant she hit the ignore button when I called, so I sent her a message. Goodbye to you too. After an hour of no response, I decided I had my answer. Then I started thinking that she would miss work, so I better call her boss to let her know what was going on. We talked to a few people from her work from time to time, and I had Bev's home phone number. Sorry to interrupt your evening, Bev, I began when she answered, but Dolly won't be at work tomorrow or Friday. She is ill? She asked anxiously. No, it's much worse. She won some stupid dating competition and will be in Hollywood with that old ex-singer Bradley Morgan. Her event coordinator said she should be back late Saturday or Sunday night, so she should be at work on Monday to tell you all about it. Wow. Are you kidding? She was very excited. No, but I wish I was joking. I was much less excited. This is incredible. She's so lucky. 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 I remember when she found out about this competition. She must have participated in it once a day for the entire month it took place. She would have participated more, but that's all they allowed. She told us that if she wins, she will wink at the camera as she walks down the red carpet, and it will be for us. I can't believe she won. I can't wait to tell all the girls at work. Goodbye, Kurt. And she disconnected from the line, probably talking to another girl. I was left hanging on the line for the second time this evening. I sent Dolly another message. If you care, I called Bev and told her you won't be coming to work tomorrow or Friday. She's happy for you. Not so much. I always have a hard time falling asleep without Dolly in bed with me, and I knew it would be damned impossible tonight. Now, I don't usually drink very much, but I decided that tonight would be a good exception. The next morning, I was woken up by a phone call before my alarm was supposed to go off. It was Scarlett. Dad, is this true? Mom won this competition? I just saw the news this morning, and the woman there definitely looked like Mom. What's happening? Wow. Give me a minute to wake up. Yeah. She won some competition, and they swooped in last night and whisked your mom away for a makeover and a dream date with that loser Bradley Morgan, who's desperately trying to revive his rapidly falling apart career. It would have been nice if we had been warned about this, but they ambushed us last night, and she left without even saying goodbye. I stopped talking because I heard her excitedly telling her husband that it was Mom on the morning news while doing a quick interview on the way out of town. It looks like the PR team was firing on all cylinders. After 30 seconds or so, I realized Scarlett was ignoring me. I hung up. She called back a few minutes later. Dad, did you hang up? Aren't you happy for Mom? Did something happen that you're not telling me about? Let's see. Partly because you were busy celebrating, no and yes. Okay, sorry. Now post it. What's happening? I told her how they arrived in a whirlwind, giving me almost no information, and when I tried to figure out what was going on, I was brushed off. She would be back on Saturday or Sunday. She left without even saying goodbye or kiss my ass. When I called and texted my mom, she ignored me. When I called my mom's boss to ask her off, she did a damn happy dance and practically hung up the phone to call the other girls with the news. Then, when you started celebrating and I couldn't get a response from you, I felt justified in hanging up. Sorry, Dad, I had no idea. I'll try to call my mom and find out what's going on. I'll ask her to call you. We talked for a couple of minutes and I started to feel better. She ended the conversation with another promise to call my mom and ask her to call me. An hour later, I arrived at work and received a message from Scarlett. I haven't been able to reach my mom yet, but it's 2 hours early. I'll keep trying. To be strong. With love, Scarlett. I replied, Thanks, I'll keep trying too. The crazy lady escort said to watch TV on the ET channel in the evening and maybe see Mom on TV. I love you too. I tried calling and texting several times throughout the day. The first few times, the phone rang 2 or 3 times, again indicating that it was on, but the call was ignored by the button. So, over lunch, I sent a message, "Stop ignoring my calls. Please reply immediately." The phone must have been switched off after that because the calls went straight to voicemail. It was disgusting. Work was hell because as soon as word got out that my wife had won Dream Date, everyone started popping in to tell me how lucky Dolly and I were. It stopped after I lashed out at the woman, who went on and on about how lucky I should be, because I told her in no uncertain terms how outraged I felt. For the rest of the day, everyone tried to stay away from me. I called Scarlett on the way home and asked, "Did you manage to contact your mother today?" No, my calls and messages were ignored. Rhett was also unlucky. It didn't work out for me either. I hope she's okay. I'm sure she's fine. Didn't you say that this woman promised to take good care of her? Yes, but I'm not sure if I should be worried or angry, or whether I should be more angry at Bradley Moron's entourage or your mom. I thought that if he could change his last name, then so could I. Dad, I'm sure there's a completely reasonable explanation for this. Just be patient. Mom will call. If she doesn't call soon, she might not have to call. Pa. Forgive me, darling. I'm just very upset. Everything will be fine. She'll call soon. I know. See you later, Scarlett. Love you. I love you too. Bye, Dad. Just so it wouldn't be a total loss, I went to Long John Silver's for dinner. Dolly hated the place, or rather, she hated the smell of the malt vinegar I used on their fries. I did order fries and enjoyed them guilt-free for a change. The house was as empty when I arrived there as when I left it. I was restless and just running around when an idea occurred to me. This idiot probably had a Facebook page. That's probably where she entered the damn competition in the first place. Maybe I could put a message there for her to call home. I went to Facebook and checked Dolly's page for new posts. Not finding anything, I searched for Bradley Morgan and quickly found his official page, and I noticed that they had a photo of my wife looking surprised in our living room. Realizing that this was the right place, I made a post where everyone could see, "Please bring this to the attention of the team that stole my wife under the guise of a Dream Date competition. I'm her husband. Since she is unwilling or unable to answer my calls and messages, as well as messages from her children and friends, please tell her that she needs to call home and talk to her quickly forgotten husband and family. Thank you." I didn't expect the many angry messages I received from rabid Bradley fans. They couldn't understand why I didn't feel completely flattered by this and simply accepted my position as the second man in my wife's life. Many of them reproached me for not supporting my wife in her hour of glory. They all expressed sincere admiration for her victory and offered to replace her if it would help my situation. It was like dealing with an army of angry teenage girls using the vocabulary of pissed-off redneck grannies. On Friday morning, I got up and tried to call her again, but the phone went straight to voicemail. I was driving to work when my cell phone rang, but the number was with a different area code. I thought maybe she had to call from someone else's phone, so I answered the call optimistically. A female voice greeted me and asked, "Are you the husband of the woman who won the Dream Date competition?" Thinking it was one of the contestants, I replied, "Well, yes, it's me. Can I talk to my wife?" "Damn it, no, I'm not calling because of your wife." "Well, maybe in a way I am. I think you need to support your wife and let her have a nice couple of days in the company of a great man like Bradley." "What? Why are you calling me? To harass me for trying to call my wife to see if she's okay? Or are you just having fun?" "I can't reach her, you stupid fool. I've tried many times since she left, without even saying goodbye to me, I might add. I made this post on Facebook because the idiots responsible for this fiasco left me no way to contact her. If your husband went on a dream date with some Bambi actress and ignored your calls and messages, what would you do? Think about it for 2 seconds before you judge me for it. She also ignored our children's calls and messages. Now, what can you say to this? "Oh, I think I understand. I'm really sorry." There was a click, and she hung up. The worst part was that on Friday, I received 40 or 50 of these calls during the day. I felt like I had to answer the calls because they could be from Dolly, but none of them were from her. After the third call interrupted a meeting at work on a Friday afternoon, my boss told me to go home. The first thing I did when I got home was to go on Facebook and read a bunch of snarky replies to my original post. One of the rabid fans somehow got hold of my cell number and posted it, asking everyone to call me and tell me how unsupportive, needy, and immature I was. I flagged the post as inappropriate and Facebook removed it, but the damage was done. So I was angry and still lonely. If I was thinking rationally, I probably wouldn't have done this, but like I said, I was angry. I posted another post on His Highness's page, attention to all the judgmental bitches and bitches who have been harrying me on the phone and on this page. Please leave me alone until you know the full story. This is how my life and relationship with my wife was ruined up without warning. I'm just trying to talk to my waiful wife. Point number 1. Bradley Morgan's competition committee showed up unannounced at my house on Wednesday night, stormed into my house, and told my wife that she had won the damn competition. I'm sure many of you would give almost anything to take her place, but that's not the point. They arrived unannounced and told her she had to leave right away. All she had time to do was grab her cell phone and her medications. She couldn't even pack anything other than her makeup bag. Point number 2. My wife was in such an excited state of mind that she forgot to give me our traditional goodbye kiss, or for that matter, to tell me goodbye or kiss my ass or even see you in a few days. After almost 30 wonderful years together, the only words I heard from her mouth as she walked out the door were something about how she would finally meet her next husband. Point number 3. The only information I got about her itinerary was that she was going to get a full makeover and then attend some movie premiere on Friday night. They told me to watch TV on the ET channel, and if I was lucky, I might see my wife on the show. They said she might be back late Saturday night or sometime Sunday. Then they were in such a hurry to leave my modest home that they practically trampled me mentally when they left. Point number 4. I tried to call my wife on her cell phone less than 5 minutes later. My first few calls were heard. The phone was on, but someone pressed the ignore button. I can tell by the number of rings before it went to voicemail. I sent several messages and received no response. I called my daughter and son, and they received the same cold shoulder as I did. Then someone turned off her phone. Point number 5. She's been gone for almost 48 hours now, and you'd think it would take 5 freaking minutes for a loving, caring wife and mother to call and tell us that she's okay and having a great time and maybe even brag a little about what she was doing and who she saw, but she didn't do that. We didn't hear anything, not even a message. Point number 6. When I get the bright idea of trying to get the people who took her to text her to call home, I get dozens of snarky replies about how I don't support her in her hour of glory. Just another slap in the face for me, but don't worry, I'm getting used to them. Point number 7. The first clue I had that this was in fact a legitimate contest was a photo of my wife standing in my living room that was posted on this Facebook page. For all I knew until I saw this could have been some kind of attempt to kidnap her and take her to parts unknown to do God knows what to her. Yes, I worry about her and miss her. It's obvious, though, that she doesn't miss me. So I had no way to support my recently missing wife. I don't know whether Mr. Bradley Morgan's team got her so carried away with their strange affairs that she forgot about us poor, ordinary people at home, or whether she decided to run away and start a new life. Then jealous and misinformed fans decide to add their inappropriate remarks to the hell that my life has become. To all of you, I ask this question. If your spouse were to win a competition for a dream date with some sexy star, and the steward stole it without warning, how would you feel? Would you do what I did? How would you feel if fans of a star published your personal cell phone number and asked everyone to call you and tell you what a jerk you are? So you bunch of jealous, misinformed, judgmental bitches can go to hell. To the arrogant, inconsiderate bastards running this contest, you can tell her to call home by midnight tonight, or I will assume she has decided to forget our family, and I will begin the divorce ASAP, so as not to delay the start of her new life. And good luck to her with her next husband. Good night. I felt much better after letting out all my pain and frustration and fell asleep for about an hour. Calls to my cell phone have virtually stopped. I woke up mostly because my stomach was growling. I was still tired from lack of good sleep. I turned on the TV while I made myself something to eat. Then I realized I should try to see Dolly on the ET channel, so I changed the channel. As I sat down to my TV dinner, fresh out of the microwave, they announced the story of Bradley Morgan arriving at the premiere with an unknown woman. There were rumors about who she was, especially since his wife was conspicuously absent. She hung on his arm like a teenage girl in love. I swear I saw drool appear at the corner of her mouth. I have to admit, she looked like $1,000,000 in that designer dress and borrowed jewelry. One of the reporters took the microphone and approached Bradley and Dolly. He asked Dolly, "I'm from the Alien Channel, and we haven't seen you before. May I know your name?" "I'm Dolly Davis. How nice of you to ask." My jaw dropped at those words. Davis was her maiden name. I was so busy seeing the red blur before my eyes that I didn't hear the rest of the conversation. How would you feel if your spouse of almost 30 years behaved this way? You would feel the same way I do. I could tell from the look in her eyes that if Mr. Bradley Moron had made even the slightest lunge in her direction, she would have pounced on his bones like a hungry piranha on a steak. A piece of my heart fell into my stomach, and I was no longer hungry. However, I felt a thirst for good whiskey, which I satisfied many times over the next few hours. It was 11:30 when she called, and she was angry. I barely had time to say my hello before she pounced on me. "How dare you threaten me like that in a public place? I can't believe you humiliated me like that." She talked and talked for about 2 minutes until someone interrupted her. "Oh, good. I have to go." Click, and she was gone. Still no goodbye. I called Scarlett and told her about the call so she wouldn't worry, but she was watching ET and was worried just like me. She said she would call Rhett and fill him in on the matter, but that she hadn't heard from her mother either. A few more shots of whiskey and I woke up Saturday morning to my doorbell ringing loudly and repeatedly. Looking through the peephole, I didn't recognize the man, so I assumed he was a pushy salesman. I opened the door and asked, "Who the hell are you, and why are you ringing my doorbell so early on my day off?" I rudely attacked him. "I'm a reporter for the National Enquirer, and I learned that your wife won a dream date contest and that you tried unsuccessfully to get her a message. I'd like to hear your side of the story." He tried to put his foot in my door so I couldn't close it. I stepped on his foot and quickly slammed the door, shouting to him, "Get a real job, you bastard, and leave me alone." Just when I thought this nightmare couldn't get any worse, the paparazzi started showing up. He was the first of about 20 so-called reporters who began littering the area in front of my house that morning. There were even a few of them in the backyard. I felt trapped in my own home. Then my landline phone started ringing off the hook. TV reporters and other people called me. I have become something of a celebrity because of my posts. One of the callers advised me to check my Facebook page. My message reached all the women who suddenly sympathized with me after the crappy treatment I received from my wife and Bradley Morgan's employees. I had almost 15,000 friend requests and almost as many private messages. I read several of them that contained offers to replace my wayward wife, some permanently and some only until she returned. This is absolute madness. I didn't contact anyone. I called Rhett and told him what was going on. He didn't believe me until he came to my page. "Listen, Dad, I know that Mom is doing wrong, but don't agree to these women's proposals. Some of them are outright crazy, and it is impossible to tell which of them is crazy and which is not. Don't worry, I have no intentions of replacing your mother, at least not yet. I should have warned you not to come and get involved in all this mess. We'd better cancel our golf game this afternoon." "Yes, that's for sure. Thank you for the warning. If you need anything, just let me know. I feel like a damn prisoner here, but I don't need any company if it means dragging you or your sister into this. I'll call her in a few minutes." We chatted about a couple more things before calling it a day. Scarlett's call went much the same way. Needless to say, I couldn't get any of my planned yard work done, but the thought of chasing those nosy bastards with my lawnmower amused me. I started looking at some women's pages on Facebook, and some of them were very attractive. Then I went to Bradley Morgan's page and found out that some of his fans were calling him out for his shoddy treatment of me and my family. No matter how hard they were on him, they were 10 times harder on Dolly. What kind of parent ignores their children's calls? It was one of the kindest things they said about her. Some of their comments would make a sailor blush. They also helped me better understand what was going on and how I dealt with it. I checked Dolly's Facebook page, and women had filled it with posts much worse than what initially struck me. Some had simple messages. "Call him, you stupid bitch. If you don't want him anymore, I'm sure he can find someone who wants him." What? Can't find 5 minutes a day to call your husband? I wish my husband were still alive. I would give anything just to tell him that I love him and hear it back one more time. And my favorite, if you don't call him, I will. A good husband is hard to find these days. Other messages were threats and insults that you wouldn't believe. I didn't think women were capable of such malice towards someone they were so jealous of so recently. Yesterday, these women wanted to be in her borrowed designer shoes. Now they wanted to replace her in her bed. Such is the fickle finger of glory. Then I got a message on Facebook from several talk shows. First Maury, then Jerry Springer. When the Ellen Show called, I answered. Even though I openly said that Ellen was a chick talk show, I sometimes enjoyed watching her as one of my guilty pleasures. Hey, she's funny. We soon had a dialogue, and I gave them my mobile phone number. They offered to take me to Holly Weird and interview me if I refused all other interviews before their show aired. They promised not to ambush me on national television, but to let their viewers see both sides of the story. I asked if this meant Dolly would be in the same episode. They said they haven't talked to her yet. I told them I agreed as long as they didn't lock her up on the same day as me, and they agreed. I called my boss at home and told him I was going to take a few days off until this mess calmed down. He agreed that it was for the best. I didn't want to bring paparazzi to work, and he didn't want them there either. It suddenly occurred to me that I had the phone number that Dolly called me from last night to tell me off. I assumed it belonged to one of the escorts, since she probably wouldn't have returned to the hotel until 9:30 after the premiere party. When I called, a young man answered, and I asked to speak to Dolly Dillon. With whom? I think you have the wrong number. I'm looking for my wife. She called me from this number last night. Oh, you want the girl from your dream date. She was in the lobby of the hotel where I was staying, and she borrowed my phone. I'm afraid I can't help you much with this, friend. Do you think she was staying at the same hotel as you? Yes, I think so. Could you tell me the name of the hotel, please? She left home in such a hurry that no one told me where she was staying, or much of anything for that matter. Of course, I stayed at the Ritz at the rodeo. Hey, aren't you that ignored husband everyone talks about? You've created quite a commotion here. That's me, but it wasn't my intention to make such a mess. All I wanted was to talk to my wife. Has she ever called you? Yes. There was a minute of angry call from her, and then she hung up using your phone. Dude, this is just wrong. Sorry to hear this. I didn't know who she was. She just said that she didn't have her phone with her, and she urgently needed to call. I wonder why she didn't borrow it from someone around Bradley. It's easy, dude. They were all busy talking to people, trying to, as they put it, undo the damage that the village asshole had caused. These were their words, not mine. Wow, I think I stirred up a hornet's nest. I can honestly say that all it would have taken to prevent this would have been one phone call from my wife, or even one from the pageant team would have been nice. They left me here to dry. Well, thanks for your help. I'll call the hotel. I am glad to help. Good luck, dude. I took the hotel number from the internet and quickly called them. I asked for Dolly Dillon's room. Dolly Dillon doesn't live with us? That's strange. She was there last night, and I'm sure my information is correct. Maybe she has been discharged and is already returning home. Then a thought struck me. It is possible that she is registered under her maiden name, Dolly Davis. Could you check this, please? Oh, yes. Miss Davis checked out an hour ago. I know because I prescribed it myself. We were glad to see her go. With all the media attention she was getting, that's not our style. As far as I remember, she couldn't fly out until late Sunday, so she was going to stay with him. Isn't Mr. Morgan so generous as to open his home to her like this? Thank you for your help, but generous is not the word I would use now. Have a nice day. Well, if that wasn't the icing on the cake, she was now going to sleep right down the hall from him. Or maybe she would do something else with him in his bedroom if the opportunity arose. I called Rhett and told him I had an escape plan and asked him to pick me up just after midnight at a park 2 blocks from my house. As darkness fell over the city, most of the vultures flew off to claim the few hotel rooms available at local motels. By midnight, there were very few of them left, and they settled into their strategically located cars and vans. I opened the window on the side of the house and climbed out along with a small suitcase. Overhanging trees nearby left this part of the yard in complete darkness as I closed the window and crept through my neighbors' backyards into the park, where Rhett waited. "Has anyone seen you?" he asked when I got into the car. "I don't think so. Until now, no one has followed me. Let's drive around just to have a look." We drove to the far end of town and didn't see a single car behind us, or anywhere around for that matter. Hey, it's a small rural town and even Saturday nights aren't that active. Okay, looks like everything is clear. Now take me to the airport in Terre Haute. I'm flying there. But Dad, she should be back tomorrow, or perhaps she's already coming back. I found out what hotel she stayed at. Notice I said stayed. I'm told she's spending the night at the house of that big jerk himself, Bradley Morgan. This was the last straw. If she can't give me and the kids more than 1 minute in 3 whole days, other than telling me off for trying to talk to her and then sleeping with him, that's all I can handle. Don't make hasty conclusions, Dad. Just because she stays with him doesn't mean she... I gave him a pointed look. Have you seen the 2 of them on the red carpet? Did you see the look in her eyes? She's gone so far that if he gave her a tour of his house and innocently said, "This is my bedroom," she'd be naked and under the covers in exactly 3 seconds, and you know it. I know she's your mom, and you don't like to think of her as a sexy woman, but she's still a woman. And a very attractive woman that Mr. Bradley Moron knows he could have, just by fingering her. Yes, I think this is probably true, but there is still no evidence that anything has happened or will happen. Have you forgotten how she addressed him so many times over the years? Okay, but this whole "with my next husband" thing was just a joke. That's what she said. It was a joke the first few thousand times she said it. It was a tired old joke back then. Then it became her own fantasy life, and this is her only chance to make it all come true, even if just for 1 night. Tell me you wouldn't be tempted to stay, say, overnight at Megan Fox's house. I understand your point of view, Dad, but I still say Mom wouldn't do that. I hope you're right, Rhett. The rest of the trip passed in silence. I arrived at the airport on time, and my ticket from Ellen was already waiting for me. 2 transfers, and 10 hours later, I was in Hollywood and saw that a limousine had been sent to pick me up. Being a small-town guy, I started chatting with the driver. I even asked if I could ride in front with him, since it would be easier for me to talk to him. We quickly became friends, and after a while I asked him if he knew where Bradley Morgan's house was. Of course he did, and it wasn't far, so I asked if we could swing by there for a minute. 15 minutes later, we pulled up in front of a white, 3-story mansion with a huge front yard and a 10-foot wrought iron fence surrounding it. I went out. I went up to the intercom and, obeying an impulse, pressed the button and asked, "Is Dolly Davis or Dylan there?" I heard the driver chuckle at my lack of etiquette. Soon, a female voice answered, "1 minute. Don't bother, Her Majesty. Just ask her. She's still my wife, or Bradley Morgan's newest sex toy. And tell her I'm at the Hilton. If she wants to contact me, and unlike her, my cell phone is on." Without waiting for an answer, I returned to the limousine and asked Roland, the driver, to take me to the hotel. He laughed so hard as we drove away that he almost crashed into another car. When we arrived at the hotel where Ellen's staff had reserved a room for me, I offered Roland a tip. "Thank you, Mr. Kurt, but you made me laugh like I haven't laughed since I was a child. I feel a lot better because I've battled a lot of things in my life, like my own wife's cancer. She's beating it, by the way." This is a much better thing you did for me than a tip. Thanks again, and good luck to you and your wife. Thanks for a great trip, and I hope your wife gets better soon. Shortly after I checked in, I collapsed on the luxurious bed and slept for the rest of Sunday, having slept poorly and missing a whole night of flying. When I woke up, there was still no call from Dolly or Bradley's people on my cell phone. Bright and early Monday morning, Ellen's staff member arrived, walked me into the studio, and explained what to expect, what to do, and what not to do. Ellen herself came to meet me and calm me down so that the live interview would go better. I told her that I accepted her offer because her show was my guilty pleasure, and I had been a fan of her comedy for years. I was the last guest of the day, and Ellen began by asking how long we had been married, how we met, etc. Then she asked me to tell my story. I tried to tell everything exactly as it happened, trying not to embellish anything. Ellen asked, "Have you ever had a chance to talk to your wife?" "Yeah, at 11:30 our time she borrowed a phone from some guy in the hotel lobby and called me. She told me off for publicly embarrassing her on Facebook and hung up, again without a simple goodbye or I love you." The audience booed her slightly. "Did Bradley Morgan or his employees call you?" "They didn't contact me in any way. I heard they were busy cleaning up the damage, which is probably why my wife had to borrow a stranger's phone instead of using hers or theirs." "Who told you this?" "Nice guy whose phone she borrowed. I called him back later using caller ID. He also told me what hotel she was in when she called me. I got the hotel number and called them to see if I could talk to her. At first they told me she wasn't there, but then I asked if she was using her maiden name, which she had before we got married. It must have made her feel young and approachable again. They were also kind enough to tell me that she had just checked out and would be spending the rest of her time in Los Angeles in the luxurious home of Bradley Morgan himself, whom she had been calling her next husband for years, much to my dismay. The public was horrified. Ellen was a little shocked by this. "That must have been quite a blow to you. First she ignores you and your family, and then she spends the night at his house. What's next on her list? Choosing new engagement rings. She successfully tried to lighten the mood. So what's next for you and your wife?" "I don't know, but it's obvious that she doesn't respect me, and I certainly can't trust her word. I think it will depend on what happened at Bradley's house last night, and whether she wants to come home." "Well, if it comes to that, you look good. I'm sure there are more than a few ladies interested." Squeals and women's cries came from the hall. It was time for the commercial, and she handled it professionally, thanking me for sharing my story. As soon as the cameras turned off, Ellen said, "I'm so sorry for the way you were treated by some of us West Coasters. Please accept my offer to stay here for a few days at my expense. Heck, let it be a week. Call it a mini vacation if you want. It seems like the least I can do. Thank you, but no. I need to get back to my kids and my life. You were so kind to bring me here and put me up in that nice hotel. Hopefully, now that I've given you this interview, those tabloid vultures will mostly leave me alone. My place is at home. Okay, if that's what you want. But we're not all bad. Look, we usually record a week early, but due to the exclusivity of your story, we'll play it tomorrow. So watch tomorrow and you will see yourself on TV. Thank you, Ellen. You made me feel welcome here. But that's just not my lifestyle. You are truly a rose in a sea of thorns." She then instructed the employee to arrange my return flight home. 3 hours later, I was in the air and on my way. By 10 p.m. that same day, I was back home, thanks to Scarlett giving me a ride. There were no more vultures circling my house. On Tuesday morning, I was awakened by a knock on the front door and the ringing of a bell. I dragged my tired butt to the front door, thinking, if it's another damn reporter? I looked out the peephole and saw the back of the head of a woman who was looking around from my porch. She turned to knock on the door again, and I saw what it was. Damn. The moment of truth has come. "What's the matter? Is Bradley already tired of you?" I shouted through the door. This is not funny, Kurt. Let me in. If you don't bother to call home once in 4 days, then you don't have a home. Get out. Look, I'm sorry about this, but I've been so busy. I thought I knew you, but now I hardly recognize you and your behavior. You made your choice, and it wasn't me. Leave. Please, Kurt, let me in. This is my home, too. I demand that you let me in. So you think you can leave us without even saying goodbye or telling us anything about where you're going, what you'll do when you get back, but only mentioning that you'll finally meet your next husband. Then you ignore my calls and messages. And then you ignore your kids' calls and texts for 4 fucking days. The only reason you took 1 lousy minute to call home was because I threatened to cause trouble for poor old fool Bradley. I would venture to guess that the only reason you are here now is because your prince is a typical weirdo jerk who is doing his best to distance himself from you, since you are part of the PR nightmare I have created. Otherwise, you'd probably still be at his house sipping morning champagne and grapefruit as the 2 of you eat breakfast in his bed. So when he finally kicked your stinking ass back to Indiana, you came back here arrogantly thinking I'd be happy to have your sorry old cheating ass in my house again, and you've got big copper balls to actually demand to be let back in. I have 2 words for you. Fuck off. Kurt, please, she cried. She sat down on the fancy new suitcase they had apparently filled with donated new clothes and makeup, and tears streamed down her artfully painted cheeks. I called Scarlett since she didn't leave for work as early as Rhett. Sorry to bother you so early, but I would like you to come for your mother. She's on the porch, demanding to be let in, but I won't let her come back into this house. Could you please come and pick her up? She's back? Yes. Is she on the front porch? Yes. Again. Why don't you let her in? Would you let your husband in if he did what your mom did for the last 4 days? I understand. I'll come now. Thank you. 10 minutes later, Scarlett arrived and convinced Dolly to go to her house because, as Scarlett said, if it were me, she wouldn't let her in either. Then I called Rhett and told him that his mom was back and at Scarlett's house. As soon as I hung up, I drove to the hardware store and bought new locks. I was just setting them up when Rhett pulled up. Dad, is all this really necessary? I mean, don't let Mom in. Change the locks? Just ask yourself. What would I do if my wife ran off like that and refused to call home, except to complain that I was embarrassing her? If I just let her be here, like she didn't do anything wrong by going away and spending the night at that asshole's house, where she was free to do whatever she wanted. Between her friends swooning over her and her stories of who she saw and talked to, and maybe an interview with her in the local paper, and what if she really did crawl under old Bradley's sheets? She couldn't keep her mouth shut about it for long. Soon she'll be arrogantly bragging about it to all our best friends. Then it will spread throughout the city. She'd be the middle-aged beauty who slept with Mr. Bradley Morgan, a former megastar and the envy of every middle-aged woman for hundreds of miles around. But I'd be the poor bastard who got his scraps when he was done with her. I'm not Mr. Macho, and you know it. But I can't and won't live like that. If she kept in touch, shared all the wonderful things that happened while she was there, and let us know that she was fine and having a great time, it would be much easier to believe that it was all innocent and that nothing did not happen. She decided to cut herself off from us. It makes me wonder what she did that she was so ashamed of that she had to hide it. I've known your mom for a long time, and she loves to share every detail of her day with me, but she can't even call to tell me where she's staying. Then, just to add insult to injury, she used her maiden name the entire time she was there. No, there is something rotten about Denmark. If it smells like crap and looks like crap, it's usually a bunch of crap and it smells like crap. Mom says her phone went off shortly after she left. This explains why our calls weren't going through. There are 3 mistakes in this. First, my mom told me to plug my phone into the charger when we got home from work because it was almost dead. It had been on charge for over 3 hours when they kidnapped her. Secondly, that there are no chargers for iPhone anywhere else. Third, why didn't she borrow a phone from one of the pageant managers? I'm sure they all had phones. Or she could have called from her hotel room. Oh yeah, and I'm sure she was the one who pressed the ignore button when we called. As much as I want to believe her, this is pure crap. I'm sorry you think that way, Dad. Look, I'd like to believe that maybe her phone wasn't charged properly, and it actually died, and that all her pageant friends were self-absorbed bastards who didn't share their phonies, and that by some weird coincidence the hotel phone service was cut off. When she called, she was not the same woman I fell in love with and married. She was unrepentant and angry that I had ruined her fantastic weekend, and when it might have been her best chance to attract her next husband. Basically, I have every indication that she tried to do this last weekend. I won't be plan B when her plans with old Bradley don't work out. I think I understand you. Is there anything you would like me to tell her? If my last name isn't good enough for her weird trip to the bastard, she can continue using her maiden name here at home. Oh yeah, and make sure she doesn't miss tonight's Ellen show. What do you mean by this? I also got my 15 minutes of fame. She got hers, so it's only fair. By the way, I'm the last guest. Why do you think I flew there? I thought you were going to meet Mom in person and try to bring her home. So, you thought Mr. Bradley Morgan would open his 10-foot-tall wrought iron gate with a jagged top to the first guy who said, "My wife is there and I demand to see her." He's not stupid. That's asking for trouble right in his own living room. So, did you try? I was able to leave her a message with the servant over the intercom. That's all. I grinned to myself, thinking about the message I left. That's rude, Dad. I'll give her a message. Thank you for your understanding, Rhett. I don't want you and Scarlett to feel like you have to pick sides in this mess. No matter the outcome, when all is said and done, she will still be your mom and I will still be your dad. There are just too many hurt feelings right now, and too many things I don't know and will never know for sure. Once we've both calmed down, we'll need to talk it all out and maybe do some counseling to see if there's enough left to fix anything. Tell her that too. I'm just not ready right now. Hold on tight, Dad. Love you. He hugged me and went back to his place, or perhaps to Scarlett's, where Dolly was. I regretted not being able to be there when she saw me on the show that day. Scarlett later told me that she struggled with them and didn't want to watch the Ellen show. She just wanted to be left alone, but they practically dragged her into the living room. When she heard my voice and saw me, she fainted. They played a recording of it for her later. She just kept mumbling, "I can't believe he did this to me." The kids both called to check on me, and Scarlett asked how I could do this to my wife. Talk about our personal problems on national television. I answered, "Our story has already begun to take on a life of its own on Facebook and in the internet rumor mill. I wanted to convey this to the public without any exaggeration or half-truths, so that people could see it for what it is and make their own decision. I tried my best not to succumb to embellishment, to make myself look better. Do you think I succeeded, or do you think I destroyed it?" "No, Daddy. I don't think you treated her unfairly. You could be a little more, well, understanding of her situation. Don't forget that I had no way of knowing what her situation was at that time, because she still didn't talk to me. She says she tried to call you several times but couldn't get through. I'll show you the call log on my phone. This will show you a bunch of calls that actually got through to me, but it won't show you how they mocked and threatened me for not supporting her in her hour of glory. This was before I posted the second one on Facebook. There were over 40 calls on Friday, so many that I was having a hard time keeping up with my work. But I had to answer them all because it could have been your mom. None of them were from her. I didn't miss any of the angry women cursing me. It's just another lie. Tell her she better stop lying if she wants to have any chance of reconciliation. The rest of the time, my phone was charged and ready for her call, but no calls came until I threatened her on Friday night. Ask her why she lies. Tell her that her lies are working against her. Okay, Daddy. Are you eating right? I don't want you to get sick because of this mess. I'm fine, Princess. I just have a lot of conflicting emotions and stuff going through my head right now. I'll deal with this. Okay, take care of yourself. I love you, Daddy. I love you too. We'll talk to you later, Scarlett. All was quiet until the next afternoon, when something completely unexpected happened. And it started again when my doorbell rang. I looked out onto the porch and saw a woman who I recognized as my new nemesis, the woman who led the pageant team that stole my wife. Dolly isn't here, I shouted through the door. You already took her once, now you can keep her. Get out. I'm not here to see you, Mr. Davis. I was sent to find out if you are at home. Can we come in? Hell no, and I am not Mr. Davis. Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean Mr. Dillon, she replied. A familiar male voice said, You're sure we've come a long way to see you, and I'd really appreciate the opportunity to clear some things up. I'd like to do it face to face, man to man. Yes, the old bastard himself, Bradley Morgan, came to see me. I opened the front door but kept my hand on the screen door. He reached for it, but I held it tightly. I don't allow a wife-stealing bastard to be in my house. His face began to turn red, but he calmed down and said, I really wish we could sit down and chat. We need to clarify the situation on several issues. I answered, If you insist, we can sit on the front porch for a while. I would invite you, but we are unworthy hillbillies to receive your highness in our village home. What are you talking about? When my stupid wife finally called me, I overheard one of your pack of arrogant asses telling someone that he was doing damage control done by that stupid hillbilly asshole from Indiana. Just because we don't live in the sparkling golden city you call Los Angeles doesn't mean we're a bunch of uncouth knuckleheads here in rural America. I simplified the situation by leaving my telephone friend out of the story. Okay, my first apology for the rude and unprofessional behavior of my employees will be for this remark. He looked back at his retinue. I'm truly sorry about this. I don't know if you've read my book, but I come from a town not much bigger than this. I know for sure that just because you don't live in a big city, you're not a redneck. Are you sure we can't come in? I'll tell you what. Let's sit on the front porch and keep our meeting in plain sight. If something happens, my neighbors will be witnesses, for me or against me, depending on the need. Okay, I accept your kind hospitality. We sat on 2 chairs at the north end of the veranda, the same ones that Dolly and I had used many times over the years to watch the peaceful sunset. 2 of his employees sat nearby but did not move their chairs close. After we settled in, he began, I would like to apologize for a serious error in judgment that one of my PR people made. She should have contacted you a week before and given you and your wife a detailed itinerary as well as an invitation for you to come. At the last minute, they decided it would be more romantic if they just barged in and whisked her away for a makeup and romantic weekend with dinner and then a movie premiere after party. By the way, I was informed that you both were supposed to attend the after party as husband and wife, but your wife's entry had a checkbox that, if checked, indicated that she had a spouse, and he, in this case, you would be automatically included. I was told that there was no such flag in any of the entries she sent. I'm not sure why she decided not to stay in contact with you, but that part was entirely her fault. Several times my staff asked her if she wanted to call home or a friend to let them know she was okay and what she was doing. It would be good word-of-mouth PR for us, so we encouraged it. She said she would take care of it later. We foolishly believed her. As for her spending the night at my house, the hotel asked her to leave due to negative publicity and an influx of paparazzi. We discussed moving her to another hotel, but we're afraid it would happen again. They finally talked me into letting her use one of my spare bedrooms. Let me assure you that nothing happened during her stay at my home. Cindy, my wife, was home that night, and she can attest to this. If you want, you can talk to her. I will give you her mobile phone number, provided that you do not give it to anyone else. I need to apologize for many misunderstandings, and I want to offer my deepest apologies for all of this. My staff had to listen to me rant on the plane all the way. Here. And I'm not sure that was an adequate punishment, although I can be quite rude to them. I'm still not sure if any of them will have work next week. He glared at the woman who had invaded my living room last week. Her head dropped in guilt or shame. I'm not sure which. I sat in silence for a while and watched them squirm. I looked deep into his eyes and appreciated him well. Well, I'm going to trust you on this matter, since I have no reason not to. I'm not going to call your wife, and I'll accept your apology if you'll accept mine for calling you a wife-stealing bastard. His face relaxed. This seems very fair to me. We shook hands and one of his employees took a photo of us doing it. He looked at me and saw the angry expression on my face. "Delete this photo right now," he demanded. His assistant hastened to carry out this order. "You know, it's only fair that since you personally came all this way just to apologize and fix this mess, your PR people can prove that this happened. I just don't like being caught off guard. Let's take some good pictures of the two of us." I even asked them to take some pictures using my phone camera. She gave me my phone back, and I pretended to look at the photos. In fact, I turned on the recorder. "Brad, there is something you should know that may help explain why I reacted the way I did. Dolly has been a big fan of yours since your first album came out. She even joked that you would be her next husband. If she had done it a few times and stopped, it would have been fine. But a few thousand times later, I think it took on a fantasy life of its own in her mind. When she left here last week, she didn't say goodbye to me, but I heard her mutter that she's finally going to meet her next husband. Dude, she's just sick. If I were you, I would never tolerate such disrespect. You must really love her if you put up with this. Yes, I have almost 30 years for what I considered a life sentence that began with, 'I agree.' She puts up with my crap and I put up with her crap. It's a give and take, but I'm not sure I can live with that." "I hate to hear that, Kurt. You are a good person, and I hope you can make things right. That's too many years to just throw them out the window. By the way, were you the one who left a message for my staff?" "Yes, I did it. I usually don't like to soften my words for fear of being misunderstood. Sometimes I really get too pushy. We were having breakfast when you left that message." Maid Katie came in and reluctantly said she had a message for Dolly, but warned us it didn't sound good. At the moment when she was talking, Cindy was drinking juice and spit it out on your wife. I thought Dolly would die of embarrassment. Cindy then pulled me into another room and demanded that I get Dolly out of our house. "Right now, damn it!" I couldn't laugh at the time, but it was damn funny. I wish I could see that. "Kurt, there's one more thing you need to know. We announced to the media that Dolly Dillon had won the competition. We are the ones who used her maiden name in the hotel room. Celebrities register under fake names all the time, so we don't have obnoxious fans and paparazzi calling our numbers at all hours of the day or night. But if anyone needs to reach us, they can still if they know the right name. My staff did this just out of habit, and some of them simply knew her as Dolly Davis or Miss Davis, so she may have just gone along with them and used her former name. In times of great stress or anxiety, people have done stranger things." "I understand. Thank you for telling me that." We chatted like two guys for about an hour, and then a curious neighbor came up and recognized my guest. Claude ran home to get his wife, and Bradley said that this would all turn into a circus pretty quickly. I told him I understood and thanked him for coming all this way to try to save my marriage and basically to apologize like an honorable man. Then I asked him why he doesn't do blues stuff like the ones on his previous albums anymore. I also mentioned that I really liked the acoustic version of Dock of the Bay that I saw on his late-night show years ago. Just him and his guitar. I told him I had a couple of his old albums that still spelled his name correctly. He laughed. "You know, this is not a bad idea. This was the music of my soul, not the commercial crap they forced me to do for years. I have to go. But it was great meeting you, Kurt. Good luck with Dolly." And with a quick wave of his hand, his group returned to the limousine and headed off into the sunset, I think, towards the airport in Terre Haute. My neighbors, Claude and Jenny, who were several years older than Dolly and I, arrived just in time to see the limousine pull away. "I told you that you are taking too long." "Now you've missed him," Claude reproached. Jenny looked at me. "Was he really here? Did you know he was coming?" "Of course he was. And no, I didn't know," I answered. "He had the class to come all the way here to clear some things up and apologize for the gross carelessness of his staff. He didn't use his celebrity status because I made it clear right away that I didn't like him. But he brought me to my senses. In my book, he's fine." "Wow, Bradley Morgan, right here in our little town," Jenny said dreamily. Claude intervened. "We saw you on the Ellen Show. Is this what really happened? Did Dolly really ignore you all like that?" "Yes, she did it." "Dude, this is wrong." "I feel for you, Kurt," Claude said. Dolly hasn't returned yet? Jenny asked. She returned this morning. I think she'll stay with Scarlett. Is she afraid to return home? Jenny asked, tactfully. No, she was here, demanding to be let in since she left without a key, I answered. I refused to let her in. I'm happy for you. Claude was delighted. You can't allow your spouse or anyone else to treat you so disrespectfully and then just walk into your home. There's no limit to the crap they'll try to get away with when they clearly don't care about how you feel. In a good relationship, you must show mutual respect. But at some point, you're going to take it back, right? Jenny asked, hopefully. Only time will tell. First, she needs to stop lying to me. Every time I get a message from her, she lies to hide something. Secondly, she will have to take responsibility for her actions. Let's see what will happen next. But you two are such a good couple. It would be a shame for you to separate. I agree, but there are some things you just can't live with without having any self-respect left. Do you understand what I mean? They looked at each other. Yes, we know. We'll support you no matter what you do. And please remember, if you need someone to talk to, we're right next door. Thank you two. I'm fine. It's time to go before the mosquitoes start biting. Good night. Good night, Kurt. And good luck. I felt better that night when I laid my tired head on the familiar pillow. I'm still not used to sleeping alone. Continued in the next video. Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell so you don't miss the second final part. The link to the second part will be in the description of this video below. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. 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 Compared